So, I've been messing around with biochar for a few years and talking about it and writing about it. For those of you who don't know, that just means using charcoal in your soil as a soil amendment. So, over that time, I've encountered a lot of skepticism, and I think that's great. People should be skeptical, especially if something that claims are made for that it's going to save the world and cause miracles to happen. But kind of a dismissive skepticism that just didn't seem warranted in the face of the information that I had available and that I was proceeding on. So I talked about that in a recent video about using charcoal as a soil amendment in America and Europe in the 19th century. That's the stuff that got me fired up and got me going and actually digging, saving a lot of charcoal and putting it in the soil. So I'm going to show you a bed today that I put in. This is the oldest experiment I have going, and it's in 3 sections. So one section is 10% charcoal at 10 inches deep. So the top 10 inches of soil is amended to a 10% charcoal mix. The second section is 5%, and then the last section has 0. Now, when I did this bed, I dug the section with 0 char exactly the same way I did the char sections. So I even went through the motions of like sifting the charcoal in, even though there wasn't any. I did add some wood ash too, though, because I kind of wanted to simulate the effects of the wood ash that would be in the char, which I'm sure there was some. I didn't know how much to add. I just tried to add some to try to make it equal as possible. Another interesting thing about this bed is that I didn't pre-charge the charcoal. Like it's really hungry when it's fresh for nutrients and especially nitrogen, and it'll kind of like suck that stuff out of the soil if you use raw charcoal. So I did that because I just wanted to see, again, to keep the sections as equal as possible and just see what happens. So I tried to treat the rest of the bed the same for that year. I planted lettuce in a long row all the way down the bed and then peas next to it all the way down the bed. The lettuce on the high char part, the 10% char part, was a total loss. Like the crop was a complete loss. They were just stunted little things. They just did not have enough nutrients to grow. The second section was slightly better, but still really bad. And then I actually got a crop of lettuce off the part with no char on it. Now, a lot of people do this and then they're like, oh, this doesn't work, or it makes things worse. But I just wanted to see what would happen over time. That's what I'm really interested in. The sections of this bed have been treated a little bit different over the years. There could be other factors involved, but I think you'll see that there's a real big difference between these sections of bed. So without further ado, let's take a look. All right, we're going to start here at the 0% section, and you can see a little bit of charcoal floating around the surface there, but that's just from, like raking the bed around to flatten it. Some of the charcoal kind of migrates around, but this section had no charcoal dug into it. So this is kind of the center of that section, and as we move towards the 5% section, it improves a little bit and they get a little bit bigger. But on the average, take a look at these guys. And then we're going to go over here, and the stick is the crossing line, and here's the 5% section. So an obvious difference in size and health here, and it gets more and more so as we move towards the 10% section. So let's take a look at this overall, 5%, 5%, crossing over into 10%. And look at those monsters. Pretty clear difference between these 3 sections. And you can also see that the weeds are quite happy and robust looking. So there's some more encouraging news. I'm not so much an advocate of using biochar at this point as just encouraging people like citizens, regular gardeners and farmers to start experimenting with it and find out what's really up, because we all have different soils and climates and stuff and different needs and different crops. So who knows what it's going to do in the long run. But, the information we have is compelling enough to proceed on, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And think about this, for all practical purposes, this is a permanent improvement in the soil. Like, how many things do you do in your garden that really affect a permanent soil improvement? If I abandoned this garden right now, it wouldn't be that long until you couldn't tell the difference between the fertility here and the fertility in the rest of the area, because all the stuff we do is transient. We can keep digging in organic matter over and over, but every year it's going to burn up. Like, really building soil organic matter takes a long time and a lot of material, like really a ton of material. and it only lasts for so long. So this not only doesn't require that continuous input, but it will increase organic matter in the soil if the plants are growing better. So, bigger tops mean bigger roots. So that means they're pumping more carbon, more organic matter as roots into the soil. So start saving your charcoal and think about doing experiments for sure. I mean, it's such a good opportunity and we really need this information. What I know now is I want at least 10%. Any beds I put in will be at least 10% from now on, just seeing how much better the 10% is doing here than the 5%. So that's a good start. Maybe the next experiment will be like 10%, 15%, and 20%. Also, I'm experimenting with how deep I dig it in. I did some that are 2 feet deep and they're like 25% and basically 1/3, so 1/4 and 1/3 of biochar, which is a ton of biochar. But we'll see how those do in the long run. And, well, I don't know. I think that's all I was going to say. I just wanted to show you that. I think it's pretty damn exciting. And yeah, that's like, dude, this is so exciting. It's awesome. Now I have a bed that's permanently improved. Huge difference. And the biochar saga continues. I feel like I should say something else, but I could not think of what it is.